Jackson Cross stood on the edge of the platform, looking out over the grand city of Xeric, the capital of the Xeric Empire. His eyes were drawn to the tall, dark spires that reached toward the sky, their edges gleaming under the twin suns of this alien world. Below, the streets were alive with motion, but there was a coldness in the air, a sharpness that made it clear who ruled this place. The Xeric Empire had been expanding for centuries, consuming world after world, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. At the head of it all was Queen Xeraka, a being of terrifying power who had crushed rebellions and bent entire species to her will. She had advanced technologies, biological enhancements, and the ability to manipulate gravity itself. In short, she was unstoppable. But Jackson wasn't here to admire the city or fear the queen. He was here on a mission. His job was to negotiate a peace agreement between the Xeric Empire and the human colonies. The negotiations were critical. The human colonies had been at odds with the Empire for years, and many thought war was inevitable. Jackson had been chosen for this task because of his calm demeanor and his ability to get things done where others failed. However, the Xeric Empire wasn't a place that welcomed outsiders with open arms. The human colonies had suffered from years of oppression, and trust in the Empire was non-existent. That's why Jackson's presence in the city was a delicate matter. The rebels, those who had not bowed to the Queen's will, were everywhere. And then there was Kara. Kara had been a brilliant scientist back on Earth. She had worked on high-tech weapons for the human military before the war with the Xeric Empire had begun. But during an ambush on a convoy, she had been captured and brought to Xeric. There, she was forced to work in the Queen's laboratories, helping to develop weapons and technologies that kept the Empire's grip on power strong. Jackson had heard rumors about her, whispers of a woman whose mind was more powerful than any weapon. Jackson was supposed to meet her today, but it wasn't going to be easy. Kara had been locked away in the heart of the Queen's palace, kept under constant guard. The Queen's spies were everywhere, and Jackson had to be careful. One wrong move, and it could be over. But Jackson wasn't worried. He had been in dangerous situations before, and this one was no different. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of purple and gold, Jackson made his way through the city, his mind focused on the task ahead. He reached the meeting point at the outskirts of the palace, a secluded courtyard hidden behind towering stone walls. It was dark now, and the stars were visible above. A small figure stepped out from the shadows. It was Kara. She was tall, with sharp features and dark eyes that seemed to see through everything. Her once bright clothes had been replaced by the drab gray uniform of a prisoner. Her hair, once long and flowing, was now cut short, barely reaching her shoulders. Despite her appearance, there was something powerful about her, a presence that Jackson couldn't ignore. "You're late," she said, her voice calm but with an edge to it. "I'm not here for small talk," Jackson replied. "We need to move quickly." Kara nodded, glancing over her shoulder as if making sure no one was watching. "Follow me," she said, leading him toward a narrow alley that wound its way deeper into the city. Jackson followed, his hand resting on the small communicator in his pocket. But he wasn't expecting trouble yet, but he was always prepared. The alley was silent, save for the distant hum of Xerakian technology. They walked in silence for a while before Kara spoke again. "You know why I'm here, right?" she asked, her voice suddenly more serious. Jackson nodded. "You're here because the human colonies need your help."
"You're the only one who can stop the Queen from controlling everything." Kara stopped walking and turned to face him.
"You don't understand," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "The Queen's power goes beyond anything you've seen. She can control minds, twist them, bend them to her will. It's not just about weapons and armies. She's conquered worlds by controlling the minds of those who are supposed to lead them. She can make anyone do whatever she wants. Even you." Jackson felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He had heard the rumors, of course, but hearing it from Kara made it feel all too real. The Queen had the ability to control people's thoughts. How could anyone fight against something like that? "I can't protect you from her," Kara continued, her voice filled with frustration. No one can. You're walking into a trap. You think you can outsmart her, but you can't. Jackson looked her in the eye, his expression unwavering. You're wrong. I'll protect you, and I'll stop her. Kara stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to read him. Then, finally, she sighed and nodded.
You're stubborn.
I'll give you that, but don't say I didn't warn you. The two of them walked on deeper into the heart of the city. Jackson didn't know what lay ahead, but he wasn't going to back down. If he had to take on the entire Xeric Empire to free Kara and stop the Queen, then that's what he'd do. They reached a building on the edge of the palace grounds. It was an old structure, one that looked like it had been there for centuries. Kara led him inside, through a series of narrow hallways and locked doors. Finally, they reached a small, secure room. This is where I work, Kara said. It's not much, but it's safe for now. Jackson took a seat at a small table and looked around the room. There were blueprints scattered on the table, as well as data pads filled with information about the Queen's technologies. Kara had clearly been busy even under the Queen's watch. Tell me what you've been working on, Jackson said, his voice steady. We need to know everything. Kara hesitated for a moment before answering. The Queen is building something that could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. It's not just a weapon, it's a way to control the entire population of a world. She's perfected a device that can manipulate thoughts and actions. She calls it the neural shackle.
Jackson's mind raced.
And you're helping her build this? Kara's face hardened. I don't have a choice. If I didn't, I would be dead by now. But the research I've done. It's not too late. I can help you stop it. Jackson leaned forward. How? Kara's eyes met his, filled with a mix of determination. We need to get to the Queen's Citadel. The neural shackle is being tested there. If we destroy it, we can stop her from enslaving entire worlds.
Jackson stood up.
Then let's do it. As the night fell around them, the sound of distant explosions echoed through the city, a reminder that time was running out. The fate of the human colonies and the entire galaxy rested on Jackson and Kara's shoulders. There was no turning back now. The dimly lit room was filled with maps, schematics, and data pads, all scattered across the table in disarray. Jackson stood, staring down at the complex blueprints that Kara had gathered during her time under the Queen's control. The Xeric Empire was vast, and the Queen's Citadel was the heart of it all, an impenetrable fortress filled with deadly traps, enhanced soldiers, and mind-bending technologies. But Jackson wasn't deterred. He had seen far worse in his career, and this time, he had something the Queen didn't. Human ingenuity. Kara stood beside him, her face drawn with the weight of the task ahead. The rebellion against the Queen was growing, but it was still a long shot. She had spent years working for the Queen, designing weapons and devices that kept the Empire in power. Her research into the Queen's neural shackle was the most dangerous thing she had ever been a part of. But now, she had a chance to right the wrongs she had done, to help the human colonies escape the grip of the Empire. We can't just march in there and hope for the best, Kara said, her voice calm but firm.
The Queen will be expecting us. She has eyes everywhere, and her network of spies is vast.
We'll need to be careful. Jackson nodded, thinking.
He knew the risks. There was no room for failure. If they didn't stop the Queen's plans now, the entire galaxy could fall under her control. The neural shackle was a weapon unlike anything they had ever seen. Kara had explained how it worked, how it could manipulate the minds of entire populations, turning them into mindless puppets. The Queen had already tested it on a few key leaders, bending them to her will. If she perfected it, no one would be safe. We need to move fast, Jackson said, looking up from the maps. We don't have time to waste. We'll strike hard and fast, take the Queen by surprise. Kara frowned. The queen doesn't get surprised. She's always 10 steps ahead. That's why we need to outthink her, not just outfight her. Jackson understood her hesitation, but he wasn't about to back down.
You've been inside her citadel. You know it better than anyone.
You'll lead us to the neural shackle. We'll destroy it, and then we'll take down the queen.
Kara's eyes softened as she looked at him. I never wanted to become part of her plan. I was forced into it, but I can't undo the damage.
I can only stop her from doing more. If we're going to do this, we need allies.
Jackson nodded again. He had been thinking the same thing. There was no way they could do this alone. The resistance was growing, but it was still small. He needed to rally more people, more species, to their cause. But that wouldn't be easy. The Queen had crushed every rebellion in her path, and the ones that survived were scattered across the galaxy, hiding from her reach. We'll need to find Zara, Jackson said, thinking aloud. Kara's eyes narrowed. She's a former Zurich military commander. She's been in hiding for years.
The Queen thinks she's dead. Exactly.
That's why she'll be perfect, Jackson said. Zara knows the Queen's tactics better than anyone. She can help us form a strategy and lead the rebellion. Kara didn't look convinced. Zara's not just a soldier.
She's a leader, but she's also someone who's been running for a long time.
She's lost too much.
I'm not sure she'll be willing to risk everything for a cause that might fail.
We have to convince her, Jackson said firmly. The human colonies are depending on us. If we fail, it's not just us who will suffer. It's everyone. We can't afford to waste time. Kara hesitated, but then gave a small nod. You're right, but don't expect her to join us easily. She'll need to see the bigger picture before she agrees. They spent the next few hours gathering what little equipment they could and making the necessary preparations. They couldn't afford to stay in one place for long, so they moved quickly through the dark alleys and back streets of the city. The more they stayed in one location, the more likely it was that the Queen's spies would catch wind of their plan. As they made their way to the outskirts of the city, Jackson could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He had led many missions in the past, but this one felt different. This wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about stopping a force that had the power to rewrite the very fabric of reality itself. And the Queen's ability to control minds was her greatest weapon. If they didn't succeed, the rebellion would be nothing more than a footnote in history. They finally arrived at a small, hidden base on the edge of the city, where the resistance had gathered. It was a far cry from the Zerek Empire's grand citadels, but it was all they had. Inside, there were a handful of soldiers and technicians, all working together to keep their operations a secret. Jackson and Kara stepped into the command center, where a tall, stern-looking woman stood by a table, studying a holographic map. Zara didn't look up as they entered. She didn't need to. She knew who they were the moment they walked in. Her reputation preceded her. She was once a commander in the Zerek military, leading battles across the galaxy. Now she was a ghost. A shadow of the power she once held.
Yara! Jackson said, his voice low.
We need your help. Zara finally looked up, her sharp eyes scanning Jackson and then Kara. She didn't say anything at first, just stared for a moment before replying. You've come a long way, Jackson. But I don't trust you or anyone else for that matter. The Queen's hand is long, and she'll find you if you try to start something here. I'm not asking for your trust, I'm asking for your help, Jackson said, stepping forward. The Queen is building something that could control every mind in the galaxy. We need to stop it. Zara's expression hardened. The neural shackle. I've heard of it, but that doesn't mean I'll risk everything to take her down. I've lost too much already.
I'm not ready to throw away what little I have left. Kara stepped forward. Zara, I've seen it.
I've worked on it. The Queen's power is growing every day.
She's close to perfecting the neural shackle. If she succeeds, no one will be free. Zara's gaze softened slightly, but she still didn't move. I can't lead another rebellion. I've already failed once. I'm not going to do it again. Jackson looked her in the eye, his voice steady. If we don't fight now, we'll never get another chance. This is bigger than any of us. If the Queen wins, the galaxy is lost. The human colonies won't survive. Your people won't survive. Zara didn't say anything at first. The weight of the words hung heavy in the air. She thought about her past, about the battles she had fought, and the people she had lost. She thought about the Queen and the pain she had caused. Finally, she nodded. "All right," she said quietly. "I'll help. But we do this my way." Jackson and Kara exchanged a glance. They had won her over. But they both knew that Zara wasn't someone to be taken lightly. She would lead with conviction, and her methods would be harsh. But that was exactly what they needed. The rebellion had a chance now, but the road ahead would be long and filled with danger. Zara was their leader, but the battle wasn't over yet. Jackson knew that the real fight was just beginning.